It was a quiet Tuesday evening in New York. 30 Rockefeller Plaza hummed with its usual low-energy buzz. Writers scurried with coffee-stained notebooks, interns rehearsed cue cards, and producers double-checked camera placements. The late night, with Seth Meyers' studio, was exactly what one might expect. A neat blend of precision, routine, and barely contained chaos. But tonight felt off. Seth Meyers sat in his dressing room, staring at himself in the mirror. He adjusted his tie, habitual twitch more than a necessity, and gave himself the usual pep talk. Except this time, he paused. There was a brief moment, less than a second, where his eyes betrayed a flicker of something deeper. Fear. His assistant, Jordan, peeked in. "You've got 10 minutes, Seth. First guest's running a little late." Seth nodded, grateful for the delay. He needed a moment. Or maybe a way out. Just the day before, he'd received a letter. Not an email, not a call. A letter. Handwritten in blue ink, the paper coarse like it had been pulled from a different decade. There was no return address, just a single sentence. On the inside, "Don't ask her about the phone," the her in question. His surprise second guest for the evening, a rising Hollywood starlet, Eleanor Vale. Charismatic, charming, and a darling of the press. But Eleanor had recently been at the center of a media frenzy after being spotted leaving a federal courthouse under mysterious circumstances. Paparazzi speculated. Gossip blogs invented stories by the hour. But no one knew the truth. No one, except Seth. And now, perhaps, the writer of the letter. As he walked to the stage, Seth clutched the note in his pocket. The cameras rolled, the band kicked in, and he delivered his opening monologue like clockwork. The jokes landed, the crowd laughed, and everything seemed fine. On the surface. His first guest came and went. Light banter, promotional fluff. But when Eleanor stepped onto the stage, time seemed to slow. She wore black, not the dramatic kind of black that screamed for attention, but the kind that whispered danger. Her smile was perfect, her eyes alert. She hugged Seth, took her seat, and crossed her legs with the ease of someone who had nothing to hide, or had hidden it so well, she believed it herself. Seth shuffled his blue cards, heart thudding. As rehearsed, he began with safe questions. Her latest film, her childhood in Vermont, her love of dogs. Eleanor played along beautifully. The audience was enchanted, but then he veered, just slightly. "So, there was a buzz last week," Seth said casually, "about a phone call you made after leaving the courthouse. Care to set the record straight?" Eleanor didn't miss a beat. Her smile froze for a microsecond, so quick only a trained eye would catch it. "That rumor?" She laughed. "Oh, please. I wish I could say it was true, but it's just noise." Her tone was breezy. Her eyes? Not so much. From the control room, executive producer Mike tapped his headset. Did Seth just go off script? The crew looked at each other nervously. Seth was known for being cool, composed, never one to improvise recklessly, unless he had a reason. On stage, Seth glanced at the card he wasn't supposed to read, the one scribbled in his own handwriting after the letter arrived. "Ask about the phone. Watch her hands." And he did. "You know, I find it funny how often people forget cameras are everywhere now," Seth mused. "That someone could have, say, seen you drop a burner phone into the Hudson moments after your court appearance." The audience chuckled uneasily. Eleanor's smile vanished. For the first time in her career, she looked unprepared. "You're joking," she said, low and sharp. "Right?" Seth didn't answer. He just stared. And in that silence, a silence so thick even the live band dared not interrupt, something happened. Eleanor reached under her seat. The cameras cut to commercial. The screen faded to black. The world never saw what happened next. But everyone in that studio, the band, the crew, the guests, would remember the way Seth Meyers stood up, backed away slowly, and whispered, You brought it, didn't you? The audience assumed it was just a normal commercial break. But inside Studio 8G, panic had already begun to seep into the corners of the room like a slow leak in a sinking ship. Seth stood frozen, 1 foot behind his desk, one hand gripping the edge so tightly the wood creaked. Eleanor Vale, the charming, adored, unshakable guest, had reached under her chair, and for that brief moment the world held its breath. But when she emerged, there was no weapon, no phone, just a velvet pouch, small, black, almost elegant. Seth exhaled, just barely. His voice returned, strained but controlled. "Is that it?" Eleanor said nothing. She placed the pouch delicately on the desk in front of him, her eyes never leaving his. "Seth," she whispered, "you were warned." The studio lights dimmed, not by design. The control room had cut them, just enough to avoid raising suspicion on the broadcast feed. But inside the studio, everything felt different now. The laughter was gone, the energy drained. Behind the curtain, Jordan, Seth's assistant, was on her phone, whispering to Mike in the control booth. "Should we pull the second half? Just cut her interview and say there was a tech issue?" "No," Mike hissed. "He went off script. Let him finish it, but keep security on standby. Something's wrong." Back on stage, Seth's hand hovered over the pouch. "What's in it?" Eleanor tilted her head. "You already know." He didn't. Not really. But something in him, an old instinct from his early journalism days before the comedy, told him that whatever was inside wasn't meant for public eyes. The crowd was shifting. Nervous chuckles echoed in the corners. The house band had started a low jazz riff to ease the tension, but it only made things worse. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was something else. Seth opened the pouch slowly. Inside was a flash drive. No markings, no labels, just cold, black plastic. He didn't pick it up. Instead, he asked the only question that mattered now. "Who sent the letter?" Eleanor smiled faintly. "Same person who sent you the footage, or haven't you seen it yet?" Seth blinked. "What footage?" Eleanor leaned in. Her voice was just above a whisper, meant only for him. "Play it, off air, alone, then decide. What you'll tell your audience." She stood, smoothing out her dress, and turned to the crowd with her dazzling, practiced grin. "Thank you so much for having me, Seth. It's been memorable." Applause followed, mechanical, confused. But it came. She walked off stage without waiting for a cue, her heels clicking like a countdown. Mike's voice crackled in Seth's earpiece. "Don't say a word. Don't mention the pouch. We'll cut the segment." Seth nodded, but his mind was miles away. As the camera resumed and he delivered a hollow thank you, his fingers curled around the flash drive. What the hell was on it? He wrapped the show as best he could. Final jokes, a wave to the audience, the band playing him out. But the moment the cameras were off, he was already moving. "Seth," Jordan called out, chasing him down the hallway. "Security's asking if you want an escort." "No," he said, pocketing the pouch. "I just need a laptop." "Should we alert NBC Legal?" Seth paused. Not yet. He didn't go to his office. He didn't even go home. Instead, he ducked into a vacant editing suite on the second floor. It was dark, quiet, and more importantly, unmonitored. He slid the flash drive into the laptop. The screen went black. Then grainy footage appeared. It looked like security camera footage. High angle. A parking garage. Date stamped just a week ago. And there she was. Eleanor Vale. Dressed. The same. Walking fast. Behind her, 2 men followed. She stopped near a black SUV. Arguing began. Muffled audio. Then, she turned around and said something. The taller man stepped forward. Eleanor reached into her coat, and then the footage glitched. Split second of white noise. When the image returned, one man was on the ground, motionless. The other, gone. Eleanor drove away. Seth slammed the laptop shut. He sat back, heart pounding. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't scandal. This was a cover-up. He checked the flash drive again. There were 3 more files, each labeled with a single word: studio. Dossier. Good night. He didn't open them. Not yet. Because one thing was suddenly clear. Whatever Eleanor Vale had gotten herself into, it was far from over. And now, so was he. Seth sat in the editing suite, motionless, as the hum of the laptop filled the silence. The 3 file names stared back at him like quiet threats. Studio. Dossier. Good night. His instincts told him to stop. Call someone. Walk away. But his curiosity sharpened. Over years of interviews, satire, and backstage whispers was louder than fear. He double-clicked Dossier, a password prompt. Seth cursed under his breath. Of course, it wasn't going to be that easy. He leaned back trying to think. Eleanor had said, "You were warned." And before that, "You already know." Know what? He typed in Seth Meyers, access denied. NBC Studio 8G, denied. He tried again. Late night, still nothing. Then he remembered something. An inside joke from a writer's room session Eleanor had once crashed months ago when she was prepping for a political role. Seth had sarcastically called her Madam President Vale during a rehearsal. Skit. He typed it slowly. Madam Vale 2024, click. The screen blinked. Then opened to a document. Hundreds of pages, scans, emails, photos. It wasn't a dossier on Eleanor Vale. It was a dossier by Eleanor Vale. Seth's stomach dropped. Page after page detailed names, locations, shell companies, offshore accounts, coded correspondence, all tied to high-ranking media executives, defense contractors, even a U.S. senator. Some pages were redacted. Others had handwritten annotations. She'd been compiling it for years. In one image, Seth saw a blurry photo of a familiar face. Liam Redford, the longtime NBC executive producer who had mysteriously resigned mid-season and moved to Europe. But here, in black and white, was a document linking him to covert lobbying efforts, information laundering, and media asset manipulation. Seth had joked about fake news for years, but this was orchestrated truth control. Then he found something else, a folder inside the dossier labeled 8G-incident.move. His blood ran cold. Studio 8G, his studio. He clicked. The video began with surveillance footage from months ago, during an early taping. Eleanor was a guest that night too, but in this footage, she wasn't on stage. She was in the control room, alone. She plugged something into the main board, downloaded files. And then a man entered, older, balding, security badge. He started yelling. No audio, but the body language said enough. Eleanor stepped toward him, and then the lights in the room went black. The video cut, static, then returned to a still image. The same man was lying on the floor, motionless. The time stamp said 8:17 p.m. Seth blinked. That was the exact time the show had lost power that night. They had blamed it on a grid spike. No one had ever found the man. The report had said he walked off-site, but that was a lie. Seth closed the video. The walls felt tighter now. Opened the next folder in the dossier, controlled guests, dozens of names, actors, authors, politicians, journalists. Some were marked with a check, others with a red X. Seth found his name. There was a note next to it. Myers, borderline. History of integrity. Use carefully. Monitor reactions. He pushed away from the desk. His face pale. They were watching him. Maybe not just him. He looked at the timestamp on the document. Last modified 3 hours ago. Eleanor had updated it just before coming on his show. Seth stood up, breathing hard. He grabbed the flash drive, tucked it in his jacket, and left the editing suite, phone in hand. He called Jordan. "Don't go home," he said quickly. "Stay somewhere else tonight. Tell no one, especially not anyone from NBC." Jordan was silent. "Seth, what's happening?" He hesitated. "Something big. And we've been on air with it the whole time." He hung up and headed to the elevator. The hallway lights flickered once, then again. As the elevator doors opened, a man in a black overcoat stepped inside behind him, holding a phone to his ear, pretending to talk. But Seth noticed something. The man's phone screen was off, and he was staring at Seth through the reflection. In the elevator wall, Seth's fingers tightened around the flash drive. The elevator began to descend, floor by floor, and every second felt like a ticking clock.